Happy Easter, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, and I'm here at Robertson and Pico, and I'm here to visit Silva West. And I have to tell you that there is an overabundance of food now. You know, it's been really good because there's been a crackdown. There's been a crackdown on the food for Met, and there was all kinds of like food going into the food pantries, like Sova and Faith Tabernacle Church, and all the different food pantries. But this food was stolen food because they're making it look like there's not enough food for the homeless people, and most of the people on the line are working for like Faith Tabernacle Church or the IRS or the government office or Department of Homeland Security or LAPD. So basically what's happening is that it was like a company party, right? And they cracked down on this because it was more than a company party, because all this food that the supermarket stores like Sova, like Ralph's or like Mariana Food Stores, Food for Less, or Smart and Final, or Vons, you know, all these different supermarkets, you know, and also like Cheesecake Factory are getting the food, you know, like restaurants like Martin, Casa Martin restaurant, and you know, some of the restaurants and some of the groceries are getting the food that the supermarkets cannot keep because they're expiring. You know, like milk expires, meat expires, and this food was being laundered into South America, into other countries, into Canada, to go to other countries, and it was supposed to be an exchange for Met, but you know, it wasn't even really an exchange for Met because it got so out of hand because of greed, and that people like building restaurants and Chinese restaurants and Italian restaurants, pizzerias, and grocery stores, and just feeding their families out of control kickbacks, you know. So there's been a crackdown on that, and now there's an overabundance of food. You know, it's sort of like macroeconomics and microeconomics, and the microeconomics is that, yeah, there's been a crackdown, and now we have all this food that they don't stockpiles abundance, you know. So the problem that we're having here is, like, you know, there's been a search and seizure, there's been a raid, and it's successful because now we have all this food that was being used for food for Met. And then what? And then you got to follow up on it. The same thing, like if there's a bust at TD Ameritrade, and they crack down on the insider trading, and they conduct asset forfeiture on money that was stolen and it was recovered. And then what? This money is going to whoever confiscated it, whether it's LASD or whoever conducted the law enforcement, and they're holding this money, and all this food and all this money and all this crack cocaine and meth, whatever is confiscated, is in limbo. And there's no accountability for that because the United States Treasury is not getting it. And so I'm part of this writ of execution, you know, because I sent a letter to Los Angeles County District Attorney because there is a Jamaican, his name is Tracy Anderson, and along with the Jamaicans and the Armenians and the Brazilians, and so what's going on here is that I cannot get my money from Los Angeles County District Attorney for like 7 years, and nobody wants to give in. If you ask them, pay this guy's money, you know, you stole it, or pay him because he's only going to keep 10%, 90% is going to the IRS and law enforcement, you know, 90% he's paying his people of the United States. Why don't you take this money and pay your taxes, because you got to chip in for the war. If you don't want to pay your taxes, because niggas don't pay taxes, and Brazilians don't pay taxes, and Italians don't pay taxes, and Chinese don't, and nobody wants to pay taxes, well, how about chipping in for the war, you know, because they got to buy uranium and guns and weapons and clothing and gears. So the moral of the story is that we have to follow up on what is confiscated to make sure it goes to the Treasury. And when it goes to the Treasury, we have to make sure it doesn't go to some big wig like Yogesh from Ohio and the IRS, you know? And because the money has to be distributed. Like, for example, a solution to this overabundance of food is to give it to the San Bernardino Army or the U.S. Marines or the Army bases or the Air Force bases. Because what's going on here is that I'm being attacked. I'm being attacked by the San Bernardino Army because they're saying that they've been stealing my unemployment insurance for like 7 years and now they depend on it. But I'm saying, yeah, but I don't have any money. You know, I have zero money. And you're crying with a loaf of bread on your arm. But I'm saying that if you take this overabundance of food and you give it to the people in San Bernardino that are coming to kill me, maybe they won't complain so much because they got all this food that fills their bellies. Because if you give them money, they're going to launder the money to another country, or they're going to lose it in the stock market, or they're going to lose it in sports betting, or they're going to lose it in bad investment. So if you give them money, they're going to lose it anyway. They're going to squander it. But if you give them food, at least their bellies are full and they're happy. And if they use the food to buy drugs, then it's not a bug, it's a feature. They're going to get themselves in trouble. So the moral story is that I have to follow up now on, it's called the Federal Reserve Depository Fiscal Agent, to make sure that the money that's confiscated and the food that's confiscated and the drugs and everything that is confiscated is appropriated to the correct budgets, including the Department of Defense, and it doesn't get the money and the assets and the drugs are not in limbo. You know, it's like confiscating the money is one thing, but then once you have the money, then what? You have to make sure it doesn't stay in limbo. You got to make sure that it gets appropriated to the proper budgets, and you don't have some bigwig like Yogesh stealing it all. You know. That's the moral story. Happy Easter. And by the way, I think I'm very close to get my money from LA Restitution or the tax court whistleblower office. I might be on stage soon. And, ooh, baby, oh, baby, my baby, pretty baby, I love you. You're beautiful forever together. I feel so close to you right now. It's a force field. Happy Easter.